I'm Michelle Beckham-Corbin, president of C3 Creating Connections Consulting, a social media strategy firm.
And I'm Mark Macomber, president of Macomber Creations, and welcome to our show,
Digitally Speaking. If you are just joining us for the first time, you have a treat ahead of you. You have just stumbled upon a 30-minute segment on all things digital. So Mark and I spend our time with you talking about trends and things that are useful for businesses and also for the everyday person to be able to use with digital items.
Well, and the digital world is so vastly huge, ladies and gentlemen. It is the matrix, it truly is, and it is out there bigger than, better than ever. So hopefully we'll bring some topics to you that you don't already know, and if you have questions for us, you can always get a hold of ACTV and send your questions to us, and we can address those. But today we have a very special, it's kind of a special episode, because we're going to go into the world of apps.
That's right. And before we jump into that, I just want to remind folks, if you aren't familiar with our show, that you can actually find us on YouTube, Anderson Television 1, or on actv.org, the website. And our very last show, which is show 15, was on LinkedIn. And this was actually the first time that we have used kind of a double, triple camera scenario. So take a look at that. It really talks a lot about putting the wow factor into your LinkedIn profile so that you can be found. But as Mark said, today we are going to talk about apps.
Apps and their applications. And there are millions of trillions of apps, maybe?
Yeah.
At least thousands of apps, we know that.
Well, and I wanted to start off with a little bit of data, too. Obviously, apps are used on mobile phones, and I just discovered that today, 45 million Americans are accessing the internet with their mobile phone, and 1 out of 10 Americans use their smartphone to access the internet only. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. In other words, 1 out of 10 of us are only using smartphones to get to the internet. So truly the mobile generation.
Yeah, the microcosm of the digital world has now just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller to where our devices have become smaller, more ergonomic, more efficient, and the mobile piece of that is awesome because it's just a flashback some years ago when you'd get a pager. And that's how people would get a hold of it. That's not that far along. We're not that far from that, ladies and gentlemen. And that was the high technology. And then it jumped to digital phones. And now all of a sudden we're getting phones, and they were big clunky things. And you wore those around, and you had a big car phone, big clunky thing on the box and in your phone. And the next thing you got to get smaller and smaller. And it's just getting incredible now what you can pack into a small device. The amount of memory that they have, the amount of ability to do anything. And I think what's really cool about the digital age is that it just condenses all of this stuff, your emails, your ability to get on pretty much any program you want, access to the internet. It's everything in one concise device.
Yeah, and I think mobile apps are just growing incredibly. Just in 2013, we saw the use of messaging and social media apps specifically grow 203%. So, there's a lot of different categories of apps, games, et cetera, but the social pieces, those are the ones that have really grown. And what we'd like to do today is kind of talk a little bit about some of those really popular apps that a lot of you are aware of and some that you may not be aware of, but also we want to kind of delve into custom apps. What are businesses and organizations creating out there to help their constituency, their clients, access information that they want to share with them? So, and I think those are the really, to me, those are the really interesting pieces. What are businesses doing today? But I wanted to share, one particular app that's kind of noted as being one of the top Android apps that a lot of people don't think about is a security and antivirus app. Like we all think about that with our PCs, right? We want to make sure we've got some kind of protection for our computer, in the office or at home. But how many of us really think about putting some kind of an app, security app on our phone?
Well, until now, I don't think there's been much of a call for that. There's just been the hackers have all been trying to break the codes for first Microsoft. They haven't messed with Apple quite as much, and the mobile devices haven't been subject to it as much. But I'm sure that you hackers out there have been working on this. So it's great that they developed one. Is it broad range? Does it work for all the platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, both of the major platforms. But yeah, so that's something I personally plan to look into right away. Another app that I thought was really interesting, we've mentioned on the show before, Mark, about Reddit and just how popular Reddit has become, and especially now with kind of the political stuff that's going on in the world. There are a lot of discussions and forums and content being shared on Reddit. And I know I've tried to use Reddit. I personally am not a fan of the format. It's just the conversations everywhere in the subreddits. And I have finally discovered that there's an app for Reddit that helps to organize all of that and just makes it very easy to get in and look at the information. So I personally am really psyched about that one.
Well, that's interesting. So does it help organize, in other words, your searches, or does it just keep things concisely for you in your points of interest?
Both. It keeps everything organized, gets you to the subreddits much quicker, and it's just a very nice, clean, even flow. So I just thought that was a really good piece. And I think, you know, with all the excitement about the iPhone 6, which is coming out, and all of the bells and whistles that it will have, one of the pieces that really intrigued me there is all of the fitness capabilities that phone will have. And so we really are seeing really a huge increase in fitness type apps for mobile phones, and that's a good thing.
To simplify here, ladies and gentlemen, just a bit, for those of you who may not be that hip or just had been using this and the apps are maybe a little bit strange to you, apps essentially are a very simple concept. They're very much like a software program, much like you'd have a software for your computer. But they can do little tiny, just one task, like turn on a flashlight.
We were talking about that before the show started. Some of the simple apps that we like, and I mentioned to Mark that my favorite simple app is Droid Light. It's like having a flashlight on your phone.
One scalding light that you can see by. Yeah. But some of them are so simple and funny. I mean, of course, a practical one for me is you can have a guitar tuner in your phone or but there's so many other really simple, funny ones as well. Little apps that just do simple little things. You know, it can be a calculator, it can be this, it can be that. However, the range of what they do and what they can do is utterly amazing as to some of the things that are done.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you know, it's like comparing the web development world, right? You can have a very simple blog all the way to a website with an e-commerce site, you know, that's very complex, and so it is with apps. I recently got a new phone, and I was not able to convert all of my information to the new phone, and I had to go back in. Thankfully, all of the apps that you've ever purchased are stored, and I actually had to go back and go find them. And I was kind of amazed. I had so many apps that I had forgotten that I even had some of these. But when you talk
you
about,
could retrieve them though. Yeah.
When you talk about those simple apps, I mean, and this is going way back. I mean, gosh, maybe 7 years ago, I had an app which was very popular at the time called Steamy Window. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
No.
Yeah. Go look it up, folks. But yeah, so basically it just, you know, makes your screen look like, you know, there's condensate. Yeah, like a shower kind of window. And then
for photographing mostly, or just
to sit there and stare at it. That's what it was for. Another really simple one that I had, again, this is going way back, many years, was, I don't know what it's called, but it flips a quarter. You know, sometimes if you have to make a decision of who's doing the dishes and you say, I'm going to flip a coin, it flips a coin and you hear the sound of it, you know, jingling, and then boom when it goes down. And now I will tell you that I did not add those back to my current phone. I've moved on.
I noticed the NFL's not using that one either, but that's okay, you know.
Hey, the NFL app actually came with my phone. I could not even remove it if I wanted to.
Oh,
I'm
goodness.
like, what is this? Oh, gosh.
Permanently embedded.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Somebody's paying some money there.
That's good.
The other thing that I just found out, Mark, which I didn't know, for a long time there were kind of intermediary apps that would allow you to use your phone to, create documents, right? Because Microsoft, you couldn't access that. But now Microsoft has created an app where you can access Excel, Word, etc. On your phone in its truest, format.
In the true formats, and and it's not very expensive either. I think
it's free.
It's free. I saw a free one. I also saw one that for a few more.
It has more bells and whistles.
Yeah,
or something?
just for a few bucks. But it's so reasonable that if you originally bought the Microsoft Office software, it was hundreds and hundreds just to load your computer. Now you can buy a similar thing for a very, very economical fee.
That's right. So I did a quick look for this week. What are the top apps for Android and also for iPhone? And believe it or not, the top app right now for Android which makes sense, is Facebook Messenger app. And I'm not sure if we've talked about that.
Can we talk about this? I would love to talk about this.
Sure.
Right now.
Let's.
Well,
that's what we love about the show.
It's controversial. I see all this communication going back and forth on Facebook, et cetera, about how they're trying to force us to accept this new messenger, and that everybody goes, no, I don't want to change. Everything's perfectly fine. Now I don't have to learn something else. I have to do something else, and they're gonna sabotage my whole system. I'm going to have to do this. And there are a lot of people who have said, well, I uploaded, I hate it, I wish I had the old one back, and now they can't because now that I made the leap of faith, now I'm stuck.
Well, and I think the biggest issue, and I think it's kind of dying down now, but the reason why this is showing up as number one is because everyone basically is, I don't want to use the word forced, but everyone strongly suggested to use that. So what has happened is that you could access the private messages on Facebook from your Facebook app, or if you're on a desktop, you're fine. But if you're on an iPad or on a smartphone and you're using the app, you used to be able to see the little red numbers and go over and click and get your messages and then converse with folks. So Facebook said basically that's kind of jamming up the works, and so of the Facebook app, and so they wanted to pull that out into the Messenger app and have that run by itself. And so I think where the uproar happened, number one, people don't like change, but I think the biggest thing was that when people went to download the Messenger app, they looked at the permissions, what you allow the app developer to be privy to, and I think people began to freak out because it was a list like this.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah.
And so I know at first I was a little bit alarmed, and then I started to read a couple of articles where people really kind of got in and dissected, and I read a couple articles where they've said, you know what, the permissions that the Facebook Messenger app are asking are pretty much the permissions that you granted when using the regular Facebook app.
Right.
And so you shouldn't really be concerned. And the article went on to then very carefully explain the reason why Facebook needed access to these various things. And when I read it, it all made sense. Because at first I thought, you know what, until I get to the point where I'm getting so many messages, and it's bugging me that I can't access them, I'm just going to stay away from Facebook Messenger. And then after I read all of that, I felt pretty comfortable with it. Now I haven't switched over yet, but once I start getting lots of private messages, then I will probably add that. But that's why it's number one right now.
Well, it is an easy way to keep things contained and have everything kind of be integral. But I think one of the biggest points of feedback that I've gotten from folks is just it always boils back to the security and the privacy things about saying, they say they're going to have access to everything that you do on Facebook, and if an app comes along and says, well, we're going to be into your private information. We're going to, now we're going to see all your contacts. We're going to see this whole integration of all this stuff. They have basically access to everything that you've used or brought into Facebook that you've linked to other devices. And that's one of the things. Like, you get a new phone, you get a Droid. You want this to link to all your other the other apps that are pertinent to this, like Facebook and all the other things, and they do, and all of a sudden it becomes this big network that other apps can tie into and get into all this other information.
You know,
and as we say, it's on the internet. It's public knowledge and public record to some degree once you put a LinkedIn account on and a Facebook account on, or website even to some degree, account of all this information about you. But I think where people get a little apprehensive is just the fact that they're thinking that outside sources are now using their information, much like when they used to sell mailing lists to advertisers to say, hey, well, we're selling private information and your name's going to be on that list. Wait a minute, I didn't really want to be solicited for anything. So
I just, I operate this way, and I tell friends and clients the same, just to assume that every single thing that you do at some point will be accessible. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. But it's kind of the fine line, what you're saying about things being connected. When I did get the new phone, because I have Google and a lot of things are connected, my Gmail, etc., it was really very nice just to have that brand new phone, sign in to my Google account, and then everything was there. My contact, everything synced up. And it's kind of that relief of, oh, wow, I haven't, permanently lost all of this information. Now, the flip side, of course, is, yes, because it's all linked up, somebody out there somewhere, really
in the cloud,
is has access to every single thing I've got out there. So it's just the old adage of don't share anything that you absolutely don't want anybody to ever know.
I don't have any big secrets, so for me it's pretty easy, but there are those that do, and that's interesting. But as this relates to the growth of this whole digital industry and everything with all of these apps, I think that's kind of a key thing. One of the beauties of all this, even though we're giving up a little bit of our privacy and confidentiality to some degree, you have the option to still say, well, no, I don't want to sync this, I don't want to link this. You could always go back to a much simpler form of life. But now that we're hooked on all this stuff, we go, well, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of this, of my private affairs, or if you will, or some confidential information. It's not really that confidential. Because I want the ability to have everything integrated. And the only thing that scares me personally is storing things out in the proverbial cloud where you can't have access to them. I'm still a little bit archaic that I still put things on hard drives that I have access to and that I know that are in my safekeeping, and that if the cloud dissipates for some reason, where does all my good stuff go? So
yeah, if the cloud should ever go out of business, right? What does happen to your stuff? I'm just going to throw this out here. I think this could probably be its own show, but recently we had the situation with the actresses who had their personal photos hacked into. So that's a whole another issue, and I just want to bring that up to underscore what I said before. Don't put anything, whether it's in the cloud or even on your own phone, if you don't want anybody besides yourself to see it.
Right. I think it's a good rule.
Yeah.
That's a good rule.
So segue, what I really wanted to talk about were kind of this whole growing world of customized apps, and I wanted to share a couple that I found, Mark, and see what you found, and I have a question for you as well. And I think some of the apps that I found that are very, very cool are apps that are connected to a museum. So for example, I was doing a little search and I found some information on the Met in New York. And if you think back to the old days, you go to visit a museum, whether it's an art museum or history museum, etc., and you could pay, so many dollars for the little headset, right? And you could just walk around at your own leisure and kind of stand in front of that piece of artwork, and then you'd get the background and the history. And so now we don't have to travel to those museums ourselves and buy the headset. We can actually purchase, or a lot of these apps are free, download the app and just be able to experience the wonderful things that the museum has. So being that this is the fall of 2014, one of the apps that was really big right now is an app for the 9/11 Museum in New York. So that's a really interesting app as well. And another app that I just kind of came across and we'll do a screenshot of this too. I'm not. This is so new. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, but it is with Adidas. And I think the app is called Me ZX Flux. But basically, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to use the Adidas app, this ZX Flux app, to be able to take one of the photos from your phone and design your own tennis shoes, your own gym shoes. And I just thought, how cool is that?
That is cool. Well, it's amazing because like we were talking about how simple some of the apps are, and then how amazingly large they've gotten. And some really big organizations have custom designed some just incredible apps specific to their industries. And that's probably the broad range of that. So when you get into these custom apps, you know, maybe you come up with some quirky little idea for something that would help your business of some sort, that you would have a special app for your business, how simple or elaborate it would be. All the way to the point where they have ones that have links to everything and anywhere.
Yeah,
it's almost like
content.
the encyclopedia of museums and their archives and all the things that they have, that you can get, again, more and more and more wealths of information. And it's interesting because it is also a whole new somewhat burgeoning industry. I think what happened when the app boom happened, all the simple apps got written. There's apps for everything. I mean, it's like, I think that it hit the top of the curve a little bit and then leveled out pretty good because the engineers were going crazy designing apps for everything. And anytime anybody had a cool idea about something, for entertainment, for games, for all of the different categories of apps, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of apps. But these custom apps are really interesting. I think one of the challenging things is the more you get into apps and the larger they get, they require a lot of very specialty, first and foremost, someone to write them and put them together for you. So as a businessman or someone who's thinking about, hey, you know, I've heard about apps, I've heard about companies doing apps for themselves, it's a really interesting process that you go through to get them. And but however, if you have the right kind of business, whether it be a marketing business or an art business or anything, that it gives you an edge, it can give you an edge, especially if it's a competitive field, to get a leg up per se on your competitors, because we still are a capitalistic society and we're vying for our market share, so to speak, that there's a lot of possibilities to that for a business who wants to develop an app specific to their industry and their particular business.
Absolutely. You know, and it goes back to what I was saying about websites. You think about all of the content that you can share on a website, and a lot of that content can be created and put together in a way that's very, very appealing to someone in an app format. Some of the really cool apps that I've seen, custom apps that I've seen lately, involve colleges, right? So in the old days, and actually still a lot today too, you would get the guidebooks, you know, mailed to you. And so today a lot of colleges and universities have these beautifully elaborate apps that tell you every possible thing that you would want to know about the school that you're considering. And then on the flip side, they have apps like University of Cincinnati for students that, again, every single piece of information that you would ever want to know about your existence, you know, as a student at UC, it's all, you know, fingertip reach in your app.
I think one of the cool things about that is that in the past, let's say you had a phone and you wanted to find out something about a particular university. You have to get on their website, you have to navigate through their website, try to figure out what's going on. The apps are almost a more concise way of distilling those down to a much more focused area. So then you're on University of Cincinnati's app, or you're on the museum's app, that they lay it out so simply for you that you can get to all this information that's really, the parameter is really pointed right at them. It's really a focused bit of information, and they navigate so easily. A lot of websites were clunky. You know, you look through a website, you get stuck, or you get thrown out of it, or you're going down some road you really don't know where you're going. You think you're going the right direction, and all of a sudden you're not. Once you're in that app, you're not getting thrown anywhere. You have the ability to continue to explore through that, to get really pretty quickly to the information that you might be seeking, or finding information that you need, or finding information, you didn't even think about asking the question.
Right, and,
So,
I think that goes along with a lot of the usability functionality. I think with the apps, it's more than just creating the content, you know, and the look, but it's the feel. It's how is the user going to best navigate through this, you know, versus the old days when somebody might slap up a website and not even like figure out, is this the way people, my particular target market, would want to use this particular website. Just really quickly, because I know we're going to be wrapping up shortly, with your project, Harvesting the Moon.
the moment.
The moment.
And the moon,
I looked
too.
over
No, we
here
harvest the
and
moon.
saw
It's kind of hard to harvest the moon.
celestial beings here in the back of the studio, and I grabbed the moon.
We still have our icons around.
That's right. But with Harvesting the Moment,
Yes.
have you thought about adding an app somehow to, I know you're coming out with a book and a soundtrack, maybe an app in the future sometime?
Absolutely. We've explored it. It is elaborate. There's a lot to it. But we've even looked at some really simplified forms because we have a specific language for our show and have kind of created this architectonic, if you will, language and all this metaphorical stuff that would be conveyed very easily in an app. So we've got some great little ideas that hopefully that'll be coming out, and we're pretty certain that we're going to make the Valentine's Day dead mark. Instead of the holidays, we're not going to compete with the holidays. We're going to compete with Valentine's Day. It seems to fit our language and our whole method.
True.
But there's such great opportunity for that. So yeah, we have, and becoming educated on apps has been a really fascinating thing for me, and what's involved with it, and getting the codes written for it, et cetera. And of course, it's like anything, like a website, the more you put into it, obviously the more costly, et cetera. But you can always start small and expand. But the world of apps is really tremendous. I have a blast with them because I have a real specific target. You know, I'm always focused on something. So when I get in there, I'm always finding something great that I can use to help me as another tool,
just efficiency tools.
And the fun thing for me is I get information that I normally wouldn't have even thought about, sometimes even thinking about or asking the question.
You thinking about that steamy window?
Steamy window. So the wonderful world of apps, ladies and gentlemen, more excitement in the digital world here for you. We want to thank you always for joining us here. Michelle and I here at ACTV. I want to thank ACTV for allowing us to do this show, and Nikki and Shane and Andy doing such a great job here with us as our very, very skilled technicians and producers. So on behalf of Michelle and I, we'd like to wrap this version up of Digitally Speaking here, we're going to have a very top secret topic for you next month, which I know you're dying to see. So please come back and see us.
That's right.
Thanks, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks.